Hello again, everyone. Deflect here for Fair Gaming. Want to bring a new video because the War Within is coming, and how is the best way to pick your main for the upcoming X Pack? Now, as you can see, I play every class, every character. I have multiples of basically everything, whether it is on one server or another. I just have them all maxed out, so in case there's a different one I want to play, I switch to, and vice versa. So I have the option of choosing from everything, but now is the time to actually pick one if you don't because of the WoW remix. And again, you can power through a full character to level 70. I think I do it in about 3 hours and 30 minutes just by doing dungeons. So it's not that long. And if you don't have one that you want to play, you can definitely level it up. As you can see, I have a bunch of 70s on this one that I've leveled up in the WoW remix, as it is very quick. So now being the key, because you have 41 days left and only have to put in about 3.5 hours in those 41 days to have a max level character, what would be the best way to decide what to play in the War Within? Well, first things first. I'll just go to the screen. There is a ton of variety. Your class, well, your character race is not the most important. Depending on the class, some fit better than others, but it's so minor, it's not going to make any difference unless you're pushing the elite level of keys, which, if you are, you already know your main, so you're probably not watching this. Going into it, the best thing to first decide is the type of content you want to do. Are you going to be raiding? Are you going to be doing Mythic Plus? Are you just going to be doing just random, questing and outdoor activities? Then whatever you want doesn't matter. Raiding a Mythic Plus, it really doesn't matter until you start pushing higher keys. And you can see that basically on Raider.io, you can see that it really doesn't matter. Up to 10s, everyone's still playing. Up to 15s is when you start seeing the drop off. So if you're planning on pushing 15s or higher, you might want to pick one that's going to be a good option. And for those, you can always mage is always a good option. Usually a rogue and Rep Pallies have been dominating the last couple seasons, or the Og Evoker since they came out. If that's something you like, you can make a real easy pick that. If it's something you're not, there's other ways to pick a main. Basically, if you're trying to chase the flavor of the month or the meta, it can change very rapidly. So watch out on doing that because, you go to season 3 and we'll go to 15 and up. We'll go to DPS. Oh, they changed it. So we'll go to 25 and up and you'll see different ones, but the Og Evoker's still there. Havoc was really good. Ret was still there. And of course, Mage. So it can change all the time. I don't recommend doing it because, it's really for the elite level to try and get those plus 33s to do. Everyone else, yes, it helps you get into a little bit of keys, but if you're good at a class and you enjoy a class, it actually works out better for you. So, back to the classes. The first thing I would narrow down is the type of character you want to play. Now, what do I mean by that? There's obviously a few different options, and that is tank, healer, DPS, and you can split the DPS between range and melee. The difference in range and melee, I'll go into the DPS first, is usually range has cast time, where melee does not. So that's one of the biggest difference. And usually melee plays a little quicker because they don't have cast time. Now you can use that as a general rule. It's not 100% true, but it's mostly the general rule behind it. As for the other specs, tanks are the least spec played in the game. Not by much. Healers are actually very low as well. And what you want to do is find out if you want a tank role. So a tank role requires usually you to lead the key, know the route, and if you're in Discord, you sometimes will call for interrupts and that. But your big toolkit's going to be defensively. You will obviously they want you to do damage because tanks do pretty good damage now. So it's being able to survive because if you go down, it's usually a wipe. They usually can't get you up quick enough. There are some rare occasions where they can save it, but for a rule of thumb, if the tank goes down, they obviously wipe that. Especially on a boss, because bosses, if they're into a heavy mechanic where the tank goes down, then you're in big trouble. Healer, on the other hand, healers have a lot on their plate now. Not only do they heal, they've been dealing with most of the affixes, and they still want to output some damage. It's not the most important because healer damage is quite low right now, so it's not the most impactful. But they do have a lot on their plate, interrupts and then CCs. Also, out there, almost every affix they deal with, and then keeping your group alive. So again, knowing the fight is a big benefit. As for the melee DPS, a lot of them play pretty quick. I believe Outlaw Rogue is the fastest actions per minute out of any of them, but some of them kind of get weird when they calculate the actions per minute because they have Havoc Demon Hunter up there, but Havoc Demon Hunter doesn't always cast the most actions. They count like some of the Soul Collection as actions where you hit one button, it counts as like 5 actions, that type of thing. So a little bit different there. But they are usually a lot more mobile during the fight. And like I said, between the others versus the caster, the range section, it is a lot of instant casts. There's not a lot of sitting there and casting. It's a lot of instant casts. And again, that's a rule of thumb. It's not 100% accurate. You will have to cast some abilities. A lot of them you can move while doing it. I'll use Windwalker Monks. Fist of Fury is a cast bar, but you can move while doing it. Unlike the Death Knights, Army of the Dead, you cannot move while doing it. Stops the cast. So 2 different variations there. Demons Hunters have Eye Beam, where you're kind of stuck just beaming. So there are some ideas behind that. So if you like the more mobility, the more free casting, you want to be on the move all the time, melee might be a better option for you. If you don't mind standing still and casting, then range could be a great option. Now, to narrow it down even further on what you like, you can look at direct damage specs, or you can look at dot specs. There's not many dot specs left in the game. There are still some. Affliction Warlock is a dot spec. Shadow Priest dot spec. Balance Druid dot spec. Feral Druid dot spec. Who else am I missing? Assassin Rogue is a dot spec. And I believe that is it. And then you have their outliers like Evoker, where they have long cast times on everything. Og Evoker has almost 2 seconds on most of their abilities. That are some, like, the ones you use a lot. So if you don't mind standing still and dealing with that, that's another option as well. BM Hunter is the only range class that is all the abilities casting on the move. So if you like the mobility of melee, but you would prefer to be at range, BM Hunter is the best option. That's also why it's the most played class, because it has a relatively simple rotation. There's not a lot of complexity to it. It does big damage, and you don't ever have to sit still. Huge, a lot of fun. I have a hunter. I play BM. I actually play BM in survival, but I really enjoy BM because you just can sit there and jump around the whole time and do a lot of damage. It's a great amount of fun. So lastly to consider, if you've ruled out if you want to tank, if you want to heal, or if you want to have the option. So if you want the option to do both, you'd have to pick a hybrid spec, which comes with Monk. Death Knight can tank and DPS. Shaman can heal and DPS. And you have to narrow down which of the specs you think you're going to play. As for me, this is where mine became a lot easier than most, is I wanted to do all three. I wanted a DPS spec, I wanted a tank spec, and I wanted a healing spec. So I usually heal and raid. I tank a lot of keys, but I do like having the option to switch into a DPS if we're full on either. So for me, it was very easy because that narrows it down just to three classes. Narrows it down to Druid, which is tank, healer, range, and melee, Monk, and Paladin. So those are the only three specs in the game that can do all three. I thought for a minute Evokers might be, but they got that support class instead of the tank class. So it's the three for me was Druid, Monk, Paladin. And out of them all, I narrowed mine down further by I played a lot of each of them. Druid, I didn't like Moonkin. I didn't like the playstyle. For me, it wasn't enjoyable. So I didn't mind Bear and I didn't mind Resto, but 2 of 3 isn't good. And Feral was always kind of mediocre and kind of bad at DPS for the last couple expansions. So it kind of ran out on me there. Paladin, I enjoyed Prop Paladin. I enjoyed Ret Paladin. I didn't like Holy Paladin. So that narrowed that one out. And then Monk, I enjoy the Fist Weaving Monk. I enjoy the Tank Monk. And I like Windwalker. So Monk for me was where it was at. So it was kind of easier that way. Now coming into, I do play alts as well. So the next, for me picking an alt's even tougher because now I can narrow it down to a spec. I just want a DPS or just want to heal. That's a little different, but picking the main should be fairly easy. And that's why you see a bunch of monks on mine just in case I want to switch it up. But play firstly what you're going to enjoy, what you think you're going to enjoy. Try them out. The best way to try them out now is a remix. You can get through a lot of levels and get them up pretty quick. And then narrow down what you don't like. If you don't like casters, don't pick a caster. Try out some of the DPS melees. If you know you're not going to tank or heal in any content, maybe stick to one that's all three. Like a Warlock has just 3 DPS, a Mage is just 3 DPS, a Hunter's just 3 DPS, a Rogue's just 3 DPS, that type of idea. And if you're still not sure, you maybe want to do it all, try out one of the 3 hybrid specs. But narrow down what you don't like what I did, cross them off, and then eventually you will be left with a spec that you want to play. Hope this helped. If you have any questions, as always, leave a comment below. Like, share, subscribe, deflect, Firm Affair Gaming. We'll see you in the next video. And as a last note, again, if you're going to chase the meta, remember the meta always changes, so you'll be switching characters quite often. There's not too often that a character is always on top, but the best and one of the only ones that's usually up there is Mage. So if you're chasing the meta and you want to be that person, the best thing to do is might as well just pick the Mage and roll with that. Anyways, we'll catch you in the next video.